Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something pretty significant that happened recently. The Yamuna River floods in Noida and Greater Noida. And what really jumped out at us was the scale. The river hit its highest level since 1963. I mean, that's over 60 years. It's remarkable and concerning. Had a huge impact on the communities there in India.
Yeah, that historical level, 60 years, it definitely tells you something big was happening. It
Right.
signals this wasn't just your typical monsoon flood. So our goal here really is to get past the headlines. We want to understand not just what happened to the water rising, the flooding, but crucially, why? Why so extreme? And maybe just as important, how did people, thousands of them, respond when they were suddenly displaced? It's about, digging into the details of the crisis and the human side of it all. Resilience, response.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. So the initial trigger, what actually caused such a massive surge? When a river swells that much, you always ask, where did all the water come from?
Right. And in this case, the main driver was a huge release of excess water. Necessary, but huge. It came from the Hathnikund Barrage, that's upstream, in Haryana. And when they release water there, well, it has to go somewhere, right, downstream. So that directly fed into the intense flooding we saw in Noida and Greater Noida.
Exactly.
And maybe it helps to understand what a barrage is. It's not quite a dam. It's more about managing river flow, diverting it, maybe for irrigation or keeping canal levels right. But it's also key for flood control. When you get massive rainfall upstream, like they did in the Yamuna catchment area this time, the people running the barrage had this incredibly tough call to make. Do they hold the water back, risk damaging the barrage itself, maybe cause catastrophic flooding right there? Or do they release it downstream in a controlled way? Here, the sheer volume of water coming down meant releasing a lot from Hathnikund was, unavoidable. It's standard flood management designed to prevent something even worse upstream. But when the volume is that high, you're going to get significant swelling downstream. It's a real balancing act, a tough spot.
Wow, okay. So managing immense risk. And just when you think one major river flooding is bad enough, there was another factor, wasn't there? Something that made it even worse.
That's right. It wasn't just the Yamuna. The Hindon River people locally call it Harnandi. It's a tributary of the Yamuna. It also swelled up massively.
So a double whammy.
Exactly. You had this dual river threat. And the Hindon's contribution wasn't small. It flooded farmlands, whole residential colonies, areas nearby that might have otherwise been okay or at least less affected.
So you're dealing with the Yamuna, and then suddenly its tributary adds to the chaos. Must have been incredibly challenging.
Yeah. Multiplied the scale of the disaster. Absolutely.
And that brings us to the human side, which is always so, impactful and tough to hear about, frankly, the displacement here. The numbers are just huge. Really paints a picture.
It really does. Just in Greater Noida, they evacuated nearly 600 families.
600 families.
And think about this 1,500 livestock, too. For many people there, that's their entire livelihood.
Yeah. Imagine trying to move not just your family, but your animals, your whole way of life, practically overnight. The stress.
Exactly. The logistics alone are staggering, let alone the emotional toll.
And those numbers, it's just Greater Noida, right? Part of the picture.
That's just part of it. Zoom out, and the reports suggest over 20,000 people in total had to be moved to safer places across the whole area.
20,000.
Yeah, and about 2,500 of those ended up in organized relief camps. So, significant displacement. And a key thing to understand here is where the worst effects were felt. It was mostly in the low-lying areas, the floodplains.
The floodplains. Okay.
Yeah, places like Sector 135, 150, 151, 167, and lots of villages nearby. These areas were naturally more vulnerable.
Which really raises that big question, doesn't it? Especially for cities growing as fast as Noida. What does it actually mean to build in a floodplain? What are the risks you're taking on?
It's a fundamental question. I mean, these areas are literally the river's natural overflow zones. That's their function ecologically. They soak up excess water, they filter things, support wildlife. They're meant to flood periodically.
Right. It's in the name.
Exactly. But in places like Noida, Greater Noida, there's huge pressure to expand, find land for building. So development creeps into these floodplains. And then when a big flood comes, the river is essentially just reclaiming its space.
But now there are homes and people there.
Precisely. That's the tension between urban growth and, nature doing its thing. And the risks aren't just property damage. It's infrastructure, maybe ground instability, long-term environmental
It's
issues.
not just a Noida problem either, is it?
No, not at all. It's a global challenge. Cities everywhere dealing with climate change, extreme weather, growing populations. What happened in Noida is kind of a stark reminder of those consequences.
But the river does what rivers do, but we've put ourselves in the way. Managing that, especially during a disaster, must be incredibly complex.
Immensely complex.
But amidst all that chaos, you mentioned the response. There's a story there, too, isn't there, about people pulling together?
Oh, absolutely. A really powerful story of coordinated effort. The rescue and relief were pretty comprehensive, actually, a big mobilization.
Who was involved?
You had the district administration leading the charge, but working very closely with specialized teams, the NDRF, that's the National Disaster Response Force,
Right.
and the SDRF, the State Disaster Response Force, plus other rescue teams. It was a real multi-agency effort, not just one group.
Like a coordinated symphony almost?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, across different levels of government and emergency services. And what really stands out is how they approached the relief side. It wasn't just about rescue, which is obviously priority one. It was about looking after people after they were safe, meeting basic needs.
So what did that look like on the ground?
Well, temporary shelters went up quickly for immediate refuge, and crucially, community kitchens to provide hot meals, basic nutrition for thousands of displaced people.
That's vital.
Absolutely. Then medical camps for injuries, but also to prevent disease outbreaks, which is always a risk after floods. Clean water was a huge focus. Water tankers, purification, making sure people didn't get sick from contaminated water. Even things like temporary toilets. Thinking about sanitation in those conditions.
Right, basic hygiene.
Yeah, and of course, distributing essential food supplies to families. It's this whole package.
Yeah.
Addressing the immediate aftermath helps prevent secondary disasters like health crises or hunger, which can be just as bad.
And the level of organization, the details, that sounds impressive too.
It really was. They set up dedicated flood control rooms.
Okay.
They even shared a specific helpline number. I think it was 0120-297-8231, so people could call for help, coordinate rescues, a vital lifeline.
That makes sense. Central coordination.
Yeah, and they deployed 6 rapid response teams to the hardest hit areas, ready to go for immediate rescues, evacuations, getting supplies in.
Right. But you mentioned a detail earlier. This is something about snakes.
Ah, yes. That really caught my eye, too. It shows you the kind of specific challenges they anticipated. They actually deployed an anti-snake venom team in the flood zones.
Wow. That's not the first thing you think of in flood response.
Exactly. But it speaks volumes, doesn't it? They were thinking about all the potential threats. Floods displace wildlife, too, including snakes. They get pushed into areas where people are.
Increases the risk of bites, obviously.
Hugely. So having a specialized team with anti-venom ready, that shows a really deep practical understanding of the risks on the ground.
Yeah, it's about more than just the big picture evacuation. It's the specific, immediate threats, too.
Precisely. Addressing human needs, animal needs, and these specific environmental dangers like snakes. It's about creating a complete safety net, understanding the local ecology. That foresight is crucial to minimizing harm.
So wrapping up this deep dive then, quite a story. We've seen these floods were genuinely unprecedented in recent history, hitting levels not seen in over 60 years.
Right. That 1963 benchmark is key.
We've got a pretty clear cause. That massive necessary water release from Hathnikund Barrage.
Compounded significantly by the Hindon River swelling up, too.
Yeah, the dual threat.
Yeah.
And the scale of the impact.
Yeah.
Thousands of people, thousands of animals displaced.
Yeah.
Huge disruption.
Now
But then also this incredibly detailed, coordinated, and quite compassionate response from all these different agencies.
a real testament to resilience and organization.
Understanding all this, it gives you a much deeper insight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Into nature's power, but also human resilience and how communities respond.
It really does. And if you connect it to the bigger picture, this isn't just a one-off event in isolation. It kind of forces us to ask some tough questions, especially for rapidly growing places like Noida.
Like what?
Well, considering these historical flood levels, knowing they can happen, and seeing the continued rapid development often right in these low-lying floodplain areas, what are the real long-term lessons here for urban planning, for disaster preparedness?
How do you balance growth with risk?
Exactly. That tension between expansion and the inherent dangers of building on floodplains, it's not going away. Maybe events like this push us to think differently. Better early warnings, stricter building codes in vulnerable zones, maybe even rethinking development entirely in some areas, giving the river back its space. How do cities learn to live with these natural processes rather than just fighting them? Especially with climate change in the mix. It's definitely something for you, the listener, to think about as you reflect on what happened here, the future of our cities in a changing world.